Well, that's it, guys. 2018 is almost over. I can't believe it. This year has gone by so fast, and we got a lot of great movies, and also we got a lot of bad movies this year. So it's time to once again talk about my top 5 best and worst movies of 2018. The reason why I'm doing a top 5 instead of top 10 this year is because I didn't really get a chance to watch a lot of bad movies or movies I just did not enjoy this year. That's because I pretty much knew from beforehand if a movie was going to be bad or not, so I just didn't feel like spending my money or time watching it. So that's the main reason why. I do have a lot of movies I could have used for my top 10 best list, but I just didn't have a lot of movies I could use for my top 10 worst list, so I decided to go for top 5. And as always, these are my personal opinions, especially on the worst list. Some of these movies that you may have liked that I just did not like at all. So anyway, again, these are my personal opinions on best and worst, so let's get started. Coming at number 5 on my best list is A Quiet Place. This movie was fantastic. It was brilliant. I loved how the director was able to take the concept of making a thriller film about a family trying to survive the apocalypse just without dialogue or without making any sound at all. You would think a movie like that would be really boring. No, it made it work. He made it work. This movie was fantastic. I loved every minute of it. Emily Blunt did an amazing job. In fact, the director is actually married to Emily Blunt. I wish I could remember his name, but yeah, this movie was fantastic. All the actors was fantastic. Even the girl who played the daughter in the film is actually deaf. So, this movie was just really good, and I 100% recommend it. Go watch it. A Quiet Place, number 5, best list. Starting at number 5 on my worst list is Solo, A Star Wars Story. This is one movie I really hope would not be on this list, but sadly it is. This movie is very, very forgettable, and it's very unnecessary, disappointingly. When I first heard about Solo coming out, I was like, why are they making this? And when I went into the movie with very low expectations, I came out sort of liking it, but then as I thought about it more and more, I was like, wow, this movie really is unnecessary. I could go the rest of my life without even watching it again, because everything we knew about Han Solo from the original trilogy, they just decided to film it in one movie and show it. And it just really doesn't work, sadly. Some of it's cool, but a lot of it is just pointless. And I almost forgot this movie even came out this year for a Star Wars film. Yeah, so Solo, number 5, worst movie on my list. Coming at number 4 on my best list is Deadpool 2. This movie had me laughing so hard throughout. The writing is genius, the comedy is genius, all the actors did a fantastic job. The CG is really good in my opinion on some parts not so much, but a lot of it is good. I think it is way better than the first Deadpool in my personal opinion. I loved it from first frame to last frame. It was a genius movie. I love this movie, the comedy. I really hope they make a third one. So, absolutely. Deadpool 2, number 4, best movie on my list. Coming number 4 on my worst list is The Incredibles 2. I know. How in the world is this movie on my worst list? Well, let me explain. This movie was very, very disappointing to me. I waited 14 years for them to try to top the first Incredibles. And they failed on every level, in my personal opinion. The opening scene was completely pointless, and I waited 14 years for them to do that scene justice, and they failed on it. It's completely pointless because, spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen the movie, the Underminer never shows up again after that first scene. Very disappointing. The villain is very disappointing in this movie. Unlike the first one where we were introduced to the villain early on and we were able to understand why he did what he was doing and we cared about him as a villain. The villain in this one, we don't care, at least I don't care about the villain at all. The villain is a surprise reveal at the end of the movie, which everyone knows who the villain is pretty early on. They just decide not to say who it is until the very end. And by then, it's just too late because we don't care about the villain. The villain's motivation for doing what they're doing is completely stupid. It's stupid reason, in my opinion. And If the villain fails in a superhero movie, I'm sorry. It's the movie already is a disaster because the villain was horrible to me. The chemistry for the family, for when the family was together, it was good, but sadly they were just far apart too much in the movie, and it just fell apart. The movie is pretty much the same storyline as the first Incredibles, just done worse in my opinion. The best part about the whole movie is Jack Jack. Sadly though, this baby was not good enough to save this movie to be off my worst list, because sadly this movie was just very forgettable. I almost forgot this movie even came out this year. So sadly, Incredibles, number 4, worst on my list. Coming in at number 3 on my best list is Avengers Infinity War. This movie was amazing. Seeing every single character in the MCU come together for the first time to fight the villain we've been waiting to see for the last 10 years, Thanos. Man, this movie was awesome on every single level. The visual effects, the acting, the action, everything about it. If you haven't seen this movie yet and you're a comic book fan, what are you waiting for? It's on Netflix too right now. So you really don't have a reason why you can't watch this unless you don't have a Netflix account. So this movie was fantastic. I can't wait for Endgame. So Avengers Infinity War, my number 3, best movies list. Coming in number 3 on my worst list is Blockers. Now this is one movie that I was semi-interested in seeing because the concept for the story looked interesting. So when I went into this movie, I was hoping to at least laugh, even if the story was interesting. Sadly, the best jokes were in the trailer. The cast did try, but the writing wasn't there. The directing really wasn't there. So sadly, it was just very forgettable, unfunny, and if your movie does not make me laugh, it fails the comedy. And that's what it's marketed for, so sorry. Blockers, number 3, worst movie on my list. Coming in at number 2 on my best list is Mission Impossible Fallout. This movie kept me on the edge of my seat. It was fantastic. Man, Tom Cruise, he just keeps getting better and better every Mission Impossible movie. He injured himself once again on this movie. What he does to make a great movie, I respect him for that. The cinematography in this movie is just amazing. All the shots were just wow. Mad respect for this movie, because this movie is gorgeous. The directing is amazing. The editing is spot on. The score is amazing. Everything about this movie I just loved. I really wish I had a chance to see this in IMAX, because wow, this is quite an impressive movie. So definitely Mission Impossible Fallout, my number 2 best movie of the year. Coming in number 2 of my worst movie is The Happy Time Murders. This is another comedy that I kind of had to drag myself to go see, because I did not pay money to see this, by the way. But I kind of forced myself to watch it. It's like, okay, maybe it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. It's worse. It's so bad, actually, that I just walked away from it because I couldn't finish it. It was that bad. The comedy does not work for me. Even though it was just puppets, the comedy just does not work. And I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of Melissa McCarthy at all. She's not funny to me at all. She was funny in one movie to me. I think it was Spy. But the rest of the movies I've seen her in, I'm sorry, she's not funny. And just the rest of the cast was just not funny. This movie was awful to me. It was awful. Way worse than Blockers as a comedy to me. So, definitely, Happy Time Murders, number 2, worst on my list. And finally, coming in at number 1 as my favorite movie of the year, Ready Player One. Yes, this movie was fantastic. I love this movie from start to finish. The visual effects, the directing, the editing, the writing, everything except for the romance part. That part is like the only thing that really didn't look for me, but I was able to forgive it. I love the book. I love this movie. The chemistry is there. Even though the romance doesn't really work, there's still chemistry that works. Spielberg did it once again. I love this movie. If you haven't seen this film in 3D, watch it in 3D. It's, wow, fantastic. So there's nothing more I can say about this movie, but I own this movie because I've already seen this movie so many times. I never get tired of it. I never get tired of watching the spectacular scenes. The race scene alone for this movie is amazing. The entire scene is done without any music, just sound effects. It's beautifully done. Gorgeous. So definitely, if you've not seen Ready Player One, watch it. Because Ready Player One is definitely my number one favorite movie of 2018. And finally coming at number one as my least favorite movie of the year. A Wrinkle in Time. Disney, I don't know what you were thinking of this movie. This movie was awful. Garbage. The writing was terrible. The dialogue is terrible. The characters were terrible. The little kid in this movie got on my nerves so quickly. I wanted that kid to shut up. Until the final act, though. I'll say that. The final act, he actually got pretty interesting. But other than that, this movie is just awful. I will say the visuals are okay, but no. The acting is just bad. The love interest in this movie, he's a creep. Oh my gosh. I was not a fan of this cast to begin with. This movie, I don't know if you could have saved this movie, because I heard the book was pretty bad too, so I don't know how they could have saved this movie, but this movie was just awful. Awful. And worst off, what made this movie even worse is because anyone who said they didn't like this movie, they were criticized for being racist and sexist. I'm like, no. Having a black cast has nothing to do with why this movie sucks. The writing is terrible. Acting is terrible. Chris Pine, except for Chris Pine, he did a good job. Except he was only in the movie for about maybe 5 minutes. And he didn't even look like he wanted to be there. I don't blame him, because this movie was awful. A Wrinkle in Time, my number one worst movie of 2018. So those are my top 5 best and worst movies of 2018, guys. What did y'all think? Well, let me know what you thought in the comments below. And also, what was your favorite movies of 2018 or your least favorite movies of 2018? Also, I just want to say before in the video that even though I do hate on the movies that I didn't like, I still gotta remember these are still filmmakers who believe in their projects and they try to do what they can and make it the best they can. It's just sometimes it doesn't come out the way they were hoping. Like, definitely for A Wrinkle in Time, I'm sure they were like, okay, this is a good story. I'm sure everyone's gonna love it, and it just turned out to be a flop. Because that is one of the things about filmmaking. You know, when you work on your own project for so long, even though it may be it may be a good project on paper, it's not a good project on film. And when someone works on that project for so long, thinking it's gonna be good, and they release it and it turns out to be a huge flop, that's sad. I've had that experience too, and it's a sad experience. So even though I hate on these movies, I still gotta remember that these are still human beings who try to make a great project, and it's still positive to them. And I hope they keep on trying to make good projects. Just, sometimes they fail now and then, and everyone does that because we're all human beings, especially filmmakers. We're not gonna make everything perfect every single time. So even though I did not like a lot of these movies, I still give the filmmakers props for trying their best and keep on doing what you're doing, and I'll see what you have next for me in store. So anyway, guys, that's my list. Thank you all so much for watching. And of course, as always, bringing you guys into World of Entertainment, I'm Kolton, and I'll see you guys next year.